Welcome, football fans. Buckle up for another hard-hitting episode of Player 54 Podcast, an independent show focused solely on alternative and opportunity football. From a sunny Southwest Florida studio, here is your host, Michael Lathrop.
Hello, football fans. This is episode 125, Football and Holiday Seasons Collide. Whether you celebrated Christmas, Festivus, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, or another holiday, I hope you all had an enjoyable and safe holiday with friends and family. Despite this busy time of the year, there has been no shortage of football news. So, as usual, this week we have plenty of news from the alternative football world to share. In addition, Indoor Football League's Vegas Nighthawks head coach and general manager Mike Davis joins the show to discuss the league, team, and more. But first, we have those football developments to cover. So, let's get to it.
Did you hear the news? Did you hear the news?
On December 16th, Arena Football One's Arizona Bandits announced Chad DeGrenier as the team's first head coach. Also on December 16th, Arena Football One announced its management team for the 2025 season. The league's key members include Jeff Fisher as commissioner, Jerry Kurz as chief executive officer, Jared Widman as president of business operations and CSO, Christy McEwen as president of league and team operations, and Gary Compton as director of football operations. Also on December 16th, International Football Alliance director of operations Jason Adams held an Instagram live broadcast. During the event, Adams announced 2026 expansion vetting is underway for 3 markets: Guadalajara, Mexico, the Georgia area, and Ohio area. In addition to the league's pending expansion, Adams provided an update on the league's draft in Huntsville, Alabama on March 21st and 22nd. He unveiled the event will broadcast across all IFA's social media platforms, which will include guest host and commentary, as well as the league's draft day stage jersey partnership with Royal Retros. Adams also announced the league will provide live weekly updates and special guests on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. On December 17th, Arena Football One announced its new broadcast partnership with Vice Sports, making Vice TV the exclusive home for weekly primetime Sunday nights in the Arena broadcast, kicking off on March 16th. On December 20th, Arena Football One's Wilkes-Barre Football announced its team's new name on WKRZ 85.5 FM. Going forward, the team will be known as the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Mavericks. Later in the day, the team unveiled their new branding and logo. The logo consists of a multi-blue shade horse with gray and blue Pioneer rider with both in red trim. On December 23rd, Arena Football One announced its combine and scouting partnership with National Scouting Combine. Beginning in 2025, the partnership will host combines across the United States, with the inaugural AF1 showcase being held on February 5th through the 8th in Naples, Florida. Additional combines will be scheduled and announced in the coming weeks. Also on December 23rd, the Professional Arena Independent Association announced the league reconciled with the Knoxville Bandits, and the team has resumed its membership for the 2025 season. Also on December 23rd, the International Football Alliance Director of Operations, Jason Adams, held an Instagram live broadcast where he stated the league will hold a press conference on January 10th in Toledo, Ohio to announce an expansion team for the 2026 season. On December 24th, the National Arena League announced news regarding the 2025 season. The league will kick off the upcoming season with 10 teams and will feature 2 divisions, National Division and American Division. The National Division will consist of the Amarillo Dusters, Colorado Spartans, Idaho Horsemen, Omaha Beef, Sioux City Bandits, and the American Division has the Beaumont Renegades, Carolina Cobras, Columbia Lions, the Shreveport Rogro, and Wheeling Miners. Top 2 teams from each division will compete in the postseason, with the highest seed from each division hosting the divisional playoff round. In addition, the NAL released its modified 2025 schedule based on the 10 participating members. The season will kick off on Saturday, March 8th, with the Sioux City Bandits visiting the Beaumont Renegades and the Omaha Beef visiting the Shreveport Rogro. As I have previously mentioned, we will now be joined by Indoor Football League's Vegas Nighthawks head coach and general manager Mike Davis to discuss the league, team, and more. Welcome, Mike. I appreciate taking the time to appear on the show to discuss the Indoor Football League and the Vegas Nighthawks.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
It's a pleasure. Mike, you are actually the first guest with any Indoor Football League affiliation. So to grace the show, this is really a treat for us. So, somewhat of a big deal.
I don't know about that, but I appreciate it.
Well, it is because I'm trying to expand things. When I first launched the show, Player 54 was really kind of that XFL dedicated show, that phrase that was used by Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. But then as I built relationships with these players, that Player 54 mantra really goes well beyond XFL turn UFL. And that's why I'm getting more into this true alternative football space with arena football. So you gracing the show from the avenue of the Indoor Football League it is a big deal. And for those tuning in, they may not be super knowledgeable of the league. So we want to kind of bring those listeners up to speed a little bit. So we're going to, if you don't mind, bear with me. We'll do a little bit of backstory here of you and whatnot. And we'll let that be the stepping stone into discussing the Vegas Nighthawks. So, Coach, you are obviously a seasoned coach and player personnel person, with your stints in the Canadian Football League, with the Toronto Argonauts, Saskatchewan Roughriders, as well as more than a decade of experience in the arena and indoor space. And with all that experience, more present day, you have been with, to join the Vegas Nighthawks since its inception in 2021, which eventually kicked off in 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Last season was your most successful with 11 wins, 6 losses, but advancing to the team's lone postseason as the West 2 seed.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, the team came up short, bowing out to the Arizona Rattlers, which eventually if my understanding is the now reigning IFL champion. So I guess it's not too bad. You lost to the one. It would be nice to be the one, right, Coach? But, that kind of sets this space. You had a couple losing seasons, but new team kind of get some footing. You now have got, some winning ways. Get into the postseason, get that, a little bit of taste of that. So that little background, where do you feel the team is currently? Because you've got experience, in player personnel, coaching in some different leagues and whatnot. But now with this particular team, where do you feel that you are currently as you prepare to kick off season 4 in just 3 months?
Honestly, Mike, I think we're in a good spot. Obviously last year was kind of the turning point for us. Obviously years 1 and 2, you're kind of just building a foundation, trying to find the right players. But more importantly, Vegas is a tough place to recruit. As good as it is to recruit to, it's a tough place to recruit to because there's so many distractions, right? You get guys that, for us, obviously we're paid to win games, right? But I'm also, I left the CFL because I could give young men another platform to help them get back to whether it's the now UFL or the CFL. In the last 3 years, we've done a tremendous job of that. And that's because we've recruited good players that use the platform and we're able to use our connections and help them get other opportunities. But as far as the roster goes right now on paper, and I always say on paper but we don't play on paper. On paper, I'm excited about what we have. Now, if everybody comes in shape, like they're supposed to be, it'll be a interesting training camp for us. You always have, a couple guys that have other opportunities or life happens or they don't show up in shape and you got to make some tough decisions right off the bat. But as we sit here today on the 20th of December, I'm excited about what we have on paper.
Well, continuity is a staple to any successful organization, right? So you got a couple of years in, you saw what worked, what didn't work. Now you have, a successful season to build off. You've been able to return a good number of players from what I've seen society's offensive side of the ball, defensive side of the ball. From last season, successful roster. Now you got to build off from that. So how do you find that balance of keeping the successful roster intact, yet improve in order to advance further on in the playoffs and ultimately becoming champion?
Well, I think first of all, the guys that are coming back, they have to understand that our job is to try to get them replaced, right? Like we didn't win the championship last year. We got to get better. The group we had last year, we kind of figured whoever won the game between us and Arizona was going to win the championship. We had a shot, like, up with 13 with 6 minutes to go, make a couple bonehead plays, and but that's last season. So for this year, you build off the guys you have to for the core, and then you find the pieces that, okay, these locker room guys go well together, because when your locker room is good, Mike, anything can happen, right? You get some that old as one bad apple can spoil the bunch is so true in any locker room. And the first couple of years we had some guys that we had to sort through, and last year was a great room. The continuity was there. We didn't have a lot of turnover injuries. Obviously, we lost some guys before the season to the CFL and the UFL, and we also lost some guys after the season. But during the season, we didn't lose too many guys like we did the previous couple. So for us, I think we've done a really good job of focusing on the right character guys and the guys that can come in and fill voids that we thought we had, and to make us a better team going forward.
So you mentioned that kind of roster change, right? The guys the right fit, not the right fit. And we talk about, successful seasons, not successful seasons. But back in October, quarterback Jerome Johnson and wide receiver Quentin Randolph re-signed for the 2025 season. How important is it that both of those gentlemen, who had very productive years, from when I compare statistics, that's all we can do, right? You kind of look at the numbers, look at the success you've had. How important are they in trying to achieve what you are trying to accomplish?
Well, they're huge pieces of the puzzle, right? Anytime you can return a veteran receiver like Quentin Randolph, who kind of knows what we're expecting, the expectations are, and then obviously you return a guy who is the league MVP. I mean, people don't realize Jerome was the league MVP and he missed 6 games, right? I mean, so those numbers could have been staggering for a full season, but for us, those were 2 big pieces. Q was a more vocal leader. Jerome was more of the silent assassin, so to speak. He's going to do all the right things as far as come in and stuff like that, but he's still maturing. He's still growing up as being a leader and being a quarterback. And we're just hoping this year he can take another step forward. And if he does, then we should be really talented.
I'm going to use this analogy, Coach. All right. We look at a stable of horses, right?
Yep.
All right. You got a quarterback, one receiver, but you need them all. You need all those horses, right, to really complement that quarterback. And when we look at the roster of Caleb Holly last year, who has been placed on the injured reserve, and what appears CJ Wyndham's future is uncertain at this moment. By no means do I expect you to make any breaking news on today's show, but looking at that stable of horses and what your quarterback needs, change is inevitable, right? You got to make some changes. How do you make this work, right? You got a guy on injured reserve. You talk about your guy that should have possibly been MVP, but he missed some games. How do you make this all work?
Well, one, I think that, and obviously they're out there. You go out and get some guys that can fill the voids, like whether we get CJ back or not, who knows? The fortunate part about it, he's got an opportunity. So we went out and got Tamarion Terry, Florida State kid, played in Jacksonville, played in Duke City, 6'3" kid that's going to run 4.4 that can be a force. You go out and you find some guys, like the Daquan Dudleys of the world is might be one of the fastest guys in the league that nobody knows about. The add a piece, Jalen Robinson that played at Ole Miss, UCF, TCU, Adam with a guy like Phoenix Pros. So just the pieces that we've added, we think can complement whoever. Obviously, we got a running back with Antonio Winbush, and then we added a veteran of the game, Devontae Jackson, who played with the Broncos, played a year in this league. And so I like where we're at. But for us, it started up front. For us to be able to re-sign some key pieces up front, that's kind of where it all starts for us. And, we're excited about it.
Yeah, we always gravitate to the sexy side of the game, And that's really the flamboyant side is the passing
Mhm.
game, right? And I think it's easy for me as a podcast host to do that because that's what the listeners are probably, gearing towards a little bit more. But you're right. It's the trenches, so to speak, right? What
Mhm.
is the offensive line that's going to move that. But let's not lose focus of the defensive side of the ball. I mean, and I'm not going to pick things out as much. Where do you feel like you're at defensively? I mean, I know the arena indoor game it's fast paced and it's sort of but you can't undersell defense. So, I mean, where do you feel that defense? Where do you
No,
think?
I think
Oh, go ahead.
yeah. Well, I think that it starts up again. It starts up front, right? For us, we're bringing back 4 guys back, which is kind of unheard of. Um, you know, with the Lee Autry, Lorenzo Hernandez, Maurice Jackson, Claude Davis. Then you add a couple new guys in there that we're excited about. You know, Maya Antadu, but from played at Rutgers, Randy Robinson played at a small school. So you add those pieces together, it's great. We get Mikael Calhoun back as a linebacker. Um, and then we go out and we have 2 DBs returning, James Caesar and Darius Williams, and then basically we're trying to piece around them. One plays corner, one plays safety. They can both play either position, and whether it's indoors or outdoors. And um, so for me, it's hey, let me find good football IQ guys that understand the coaching and our job here is not to reinvent the wheel either, Mike. Right? Like I literally just I need guys that can come in here and understand the process, and for us to make you more efficient at what you already do. Right? What are you lacking? Is it football IQ? Is it film study? Is it gamesmanship? Like, what is it? What are you missing that's keeping you from being like a lot of the other 30 guys that have gotten opportunities to get to the next level, right? And some of these guys have had that opportunity, and some of them haven't. So there's something missing. Obviously, the team's got to have a need. The outdoor team's got to have a need, and the timing's got to be right. It's not like we can just make a phone call like, "Oh, you got to sign this guy," and the guys are, "Oh yeah, Coach Davis, we'll sign this guy for you." There's a process behind it all, and um, as we go through it, it's guys get signed from us more often than not based off their practice film than their game film. So trying to teach them how to be a pro is more important during practice days than it is on game days. Because everybody, I mean, let's be honest, most everybody plays well on game days.
Yeah, no, I like that, Mike. I really do, and it's not. I'm a former athlete, high
Mm-hmm.
school, college athlete. I didn't play football because I came from a high school that didn't have football. And I know most people that tune in have heard this. I'm just sharing this with you. They're probably like, all right, I've heard this a million times from Mike. I played soccer, and that was my thing, but I've always been a football fan. But I agree with that. I mean, there's just so much difference. Everyone's going to get ramped up for game day, right? Because that's what, it's what everyone's looking for. But practice makes a big difference. It does in a way that a player not only how productive can they be on game day, but it's also where your health level is. Kind of, it really does dictate not just how you're going to perform, but are you really ready to flick that switch and go time? So I agree. I think it does tell a lot about a player. I think it does impact a lot of things. I know we know there's that rant from Allen Iverson back in the day in the NBA practice. We're talking about practice, but I mean that's so true. So I'm glad that you kind of look at that because I interact with a bunch of players, DMs and text messages, and I've been blessed to, build some nice friendships, and that's kind of why I'm expanded the show. But it's so true that these players sometimes, whether they want to look at the indoor arena space, and they're like, "Oh, I just don't see this." I'm like, "You just need to get off the couch. You just need to get out there. You need to be doing something." And really, I mean, if you're going to be a professional, be a professional. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that because this is the type of stuff that the players are tuning in. More of it. Coach Davis is telling you that this stuff does matter, and I'm glad because it's not just me, some guy that's holding a podcast sharing it, but it does.
Well, I mean, if you talk to any player personnel guy, no matter where they're at, what do they say? What have you been doing lately? Like, how are you keeping your skills sharp? And then you hear all these guys, so we have a player personnel guy. You probably know him, Evan Wilsmore, and Evan's fantastic. And Evan is a young guy who's learning and kind of teaching him the ropes, and he's taken it and ran with it, right? But it's more the guys that will tell him like, oh well, I just don't know. They don't know anything about the indoor game. but then they start looking and then they're like, okay, this makes sense. Oh, this guy has connections. Or, and I can just speak for us, but I don't care if you're playing for Vegas or another team in the IFL, right? Get your film, go in. But the minute you take this opportunity for granted, it'll be just like you taking the UFL or the CFL for granted. There's players here that are starving for an opportunity. They just haven't been, the door hasn't been opened yet for them. And those guys will continue to get opportunities, but opportunities are created. They're not just given to you.
Absolutely. I mean, we are living in a time of alternative football is like booming, right? This big whole resurgence of everything going on. And I know that makes, different tiers and things, all these players, you're probably dealing with things that you've never dealt with before, right? I mean, the leagues, the change within your leagues, like, Fisher's Freight joined the league this year, and then you have 3 teams enter dormant status, right? So you have that whole element. Players are either gun ho, or then all of a sudden they become a little hesitant on signing because they're like, okay, all this different stuff. Because we see good, bad, ugly, whatever. What does this do for you as you are in the off season, right? You're trying to deal with players. I mean, there is feast and famine sometimes, right? Because now you got more teams going after these players. What does that do you? You're in the off season. Yes, you're resigning players. Yes, you're looking at whatever, but now you got teams going to dormant status. You got to look at those guys, but there's the other leagues. I'm kind of just throwing something at you. But it's kind of an interesting thing because, Coach, that's definitely something that you're dealing with probably on a day-to-day basis to some extent.
Yeah. I mean, you look at, we're not a big team that signs a bunch of guys off other teams. Um, I don't believe in that, you know. Obviously, we went out and got Tamara Terry because he was in Duke City, and we tried to trade for him last year before he went to Duke City, and Duke City went dormant, so it was easy pickup for us, right? Um, most guys that we look at are guys who are fresh out of college or we're in the CFL camp or in the UFL camp or whatever reason, right? Because it's guys that we want to, if they use the platform the right way, we can help them. And let me rephrase that. They can help themselves get back to the next level. To plug like the situation here, like everybody that's played here knows. I mean, it's the creme de la creme when it comes to the housing. I mean, we play in $100 million facility that we own. Like, the stuff. Like we had some guys come in last year that had been in the UFL and XFL, and this is not a knock on them, but like, coach, this is so much nicer than what we had access to. Just because we have the hot tubs, the cold tubs, the Theraguns, that anything you need, we have access to. And the one thing we preach from the day you step foot in Las Vegas is, hey, I'm a true believer in prehab, not rehab, right? Like if you're hurt, we'll get you squared away. But what do we have to do to keep you available? Because the best ability is availability. And I say it day in and day out. And guys come in and you see, you walk in and we always make a joke about it. You walk in the first week of training camp and everybody's in there early, everybody wants the excitement. Then you get the week 3, 4, 5, and you get the group of 4 or 5 that are always in there early. Then you get the stragglers who come in 30 minutes before practice. Well, last year we had, I don't know, half the team in there early, whether it's taking advantage of our hot tubs or our cold tubs or whatever, just truly understanding how to be a pro, because we had a couple guys that had been there before. And it wasn't them coming in by themselves. They would bring a couple with them. And that just kind of spread through the team. And so as players are looking through it, the advice I would tell them is you can't take advice from your buddy who had a bad experience in said team, right? Everybody's situation is different. Everybody's organization is different. What I would tell you to find the team that believes in you and your skill set, and that you're going to believe in what they have to offer, right? And if you do that, there's a place for everybody within reason.
All right, Coach. I feel like we kind of dove into the offseason player changes, where you're at. Let's talk about the league for a little bit, right? Because there's a difference, right? We have the arena, whether it's AF1, Arena Football League, NAL, right? Okay. But then you have indoor, right? And we know back nets, no back, no nets, Ironman football, no, the motion. But what can you tell those that are tuning in, the players that have followed me that, maybe haven't given the indoor game or the IFL a shot? or even the fans that haven't. What can you tell them about the IFL particularly? You know, you see it from a coach's level, but you're living it day in and day out. I mean, not just recently, but for almost half a
20 years.
decade.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, like you've been, or yeah, even the arena space for as long as you have, right? So I mean, so what can
Well,
you tell them?
the first thing I would tell you is it all depends on what you're doing, right? I do believe that the IFL is the premier indoor football league, and it's different than the other leagues. The IFL, what separates the IFL is the IFL is a I don't want to say a younger league, right? But it's about more development. We use true receivers. Most people use four DBs. Some people use two linebackers. There's roster flexibility. You don't play both ways. Like obviously you have a guy that can play both ways. That you have an injury. Oh yeah, I can fill in at receiver or DB, and obviously we coach them up to do that. But um, I think every league has its benefits depending on who you are, right? If you look at the Arena Football One, and there's some great coaches in there too. But you get a lot more veteran guys in that league just because um, there's some quirks to it, and you got to learn the game more. So it really depends on your coaching staff and what you're looking to build. The IFL is and I probably should have done this, but I mean, if you look at it, the majority of guys are 23 to 26, 27, right? You get a couple guys here or there that may live locally. Like for us, Caleb Holly's is a local guy coming off an injury, but he's 30 years old, but he's only played, 6 years of 7 years of professional football or football period. And so you get certain situations where it's different, but for us in Vegas, we're more of a 23 to 27 ish type team. Um, and what have you done for me lately? Like let's get after it. I don't care. Everybody deserves a second chance. Um, and that as long as we're not going to hold anything against you. It's just you want to advance to the UFL or the CFL or the NFL. You got to be squeaky clean. And a lot of people have said, oh, well, they were commendable players and upstanding humans in Vegas, then, they can survive pretty much anywhere.
That's a very good point. You look at certain markets that have a lot going on. The term it's typically used, distractions. So I get that, whether it's New York, Vegas, LA, the bigger cities, Vegas is just, it's this, Sin City, right? It just has everything at your disposal.
You can do something anytime, any
Right.
day, any hour of any day. There's something going on in Vegas, and I don't care if it's 3 in the afternoon or 3:30 in the morning. You could find something to get into, and there will be people there. So, it's if you're here for the right reasons, though, Mike, it always works itself out, and been very blessed to have some great young men come through this program here the last couple of years.
Well, I mean, in life, we all have to deal with temptation, whatever it is, right? It's when you need to be responsible, when you need to be all business, whatever it might term you want to use. It's time to step up, and it's good to have an organization there. You guys do deal with a lot of competition, like that's the other thing. It's not just for players and keeping focus, but then the fan interest. Vegas is like you said, got everything going on, but you seem to draw well. It seems to be a pretty decent fan base, even for a young franchise. You guys, so that is a testament to everything that's going on, not just the product that you're putting together on the field, coach, or within the arena, but I mean that's just says everything about ownership. Not that I know the ownership all that well, but I mean I do know Evan, and I have had the pleasant Evans Wills more that you referred to earlier. So I have had the pleasure to talk with him, and he was on the show when he was first become the assistant director player personnel guy for you guys, so he hadn't really gotten into it that much. So I didn't really put that as the first IFL guy because he was just too new to it. But no, I find it a pretty interesting thing. And IFL appears to have legacy brands, with teams that had been around for a while, and whether it been the old AFL days, they have some newer ones, like obviously for sure, Fisher's Freight and stuff. And you guys are a very young franchise yourself, so I think it's a good mix of old, new, but a different version of indoor arena. That I'm not a big fan of the back net because it's a different version of football to me. But to
Mm.
each their own. Everyone likes what they like, and they don't like what they like. That's the greatness about making us all different. But so I do tend to look at that as a more positive thing, especially for those keeping the kicking in the game and keeping it more traditional. That's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, people like what they like,
Right.
right? And I don't try to compete with it. Like, okay, great. There's I may not like a guy, but San Antonio or Fishers or another team in the league may like a guy, right? I mean, hell, we've the last couple of years, everybody we've cut, everybody we've cut from training camp in Vegas has ended up on another team playing for somebody. So it's just because you come to a team and whether it's Vegas, whether it's a team in the East, whether Jacksonville, wherever, right? There's opportunities, and just because the opportunity might not fit for you here or somewhere else doesn't mean it doesn't fit for us or somebody else. Um, and just word travels fast, right? Like you're a good kid, good player. Like coaches will a lot of time will try to reach out and try to help you, right? Because the majority of us are in this to win games and to help guys, right? Help young men. Like we joke about it with our staff. Like, if we leave every year, if there's one guy that says, "Hey, you made me open my eyes to being a better young man or a grown man or a human," that's what it's about, right? Like we have me and Coach Chan were talking about it. We have guys from our first year in Nebraska that we still communicate with. There were players that will still reach out for birthdays and weddings and anniversaries and things like that. So, you build those bonds and because we spend so much time together, right? And then,
All right.
some people spend more time together than others. And, like we try to do everything here based on my experiences in the CFL, as far as guys are in early, they're out of the building by 12:30. So you have that in the afternoons and things like that. So anything we can do to help guys succeed, either life on the field or off the field, that's kind of our motto out here.
Love lifelong relationships one way or another. Whether it's a friendship, mentorship, that's always a great
Mhm.
thing. And I think sports is all full of that, whether it's high school, college, professional. Again, people get out of it what they put into it and what they want to, get, back in return. So, no, that's a beautiful thing. So, Coach, before we wrap things up here, I like to give everyone kind of their own soapbox moment, right? There's always a million things that are being asked of people on, within the media, podcasts and whatnot. So I want to provide you a moment to get on that soapbox and kind of cover anything you think is very important to the IFL, the Vegas Nighthawks that I haven't really touched on, right? Just something you think that's very important to what you guys are or what the league is. So, and that way people get a chance to hear something you think is, pretty important, pretty dear to you.
I mean, honestly, for me, it starts with ownership. Like, I know we barely spoke about it, but our ownership group, Bill Foley owns the Vegas Golden Knights. So, like, when I took the job, it was like, hey, we can't pay these guys $1 million, but you can treat them like $1 million, like $1 million athletes. And so they do everything for that, whether it's our training table, whether it's our housing. And for guys, I would tell them to, do your due diligence. Don't be married to one system. Keep your eyes open, keep an open mindset. There's guys out there begging for jobs, and some guys out here, the opportunity of the job is right in front of them, and they don't take advantage of it. I'm not here to beg anybody to play football, right? That's not my job. That's not our job for any of our coaches. Our job is to provide you with a platform. And like I use this analogy all the time. I'm going to give you a Ferrari. How fast you drive it is up to you.
That's valid. Well, Mike, I appreciate your time. It has been a pleasure having you on the show to discuss the Vegas Nighthawks, the Indoor Football League. If you're interested, I know we got a few more months before the season, but maybe, if you have the availability once we're in season, postseason, maybe we could have you come back on and catch up and kind of talk more football, not this off-season stuff,
Not a
and not
problem.
It'd be really cool to talk about the 2025 season.
Anytime, man. I'm here for the platform and for the cause. So anything I can help and help spread the knowledge and then just talk ball, that's what I'm here for.
All right, appreciate it. So, Coach, if you have them off the top of your head or right handy, a lot of people are always looking for stuff, whether it's the social medias, your social media page accounts, so they can follow you and see what's going on, the team, and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
If you just can share that with those that are tuning in.
Cool. What is all of it? My Instagram is mdavishokie. Obviously, I went to Virginia Tech. My Twitter is NighthawksHC. And then Facebook is Mike Davis, obviously. And then you can follow our Vegas stuff at Nighthawks IFL, at Nighthawks IFL, or VegasNighthawks.com.
All right. Well, a simple Google search usually helps people too, right, Coach?
Not a problem.
All right. Well, perfect. Thank you, Mike.
Not a problem, Mike. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah. Thank you. Seeing teams are busy maneuvering their usual business operations during peak holiday functions, we are fortunate to have Mike appear on the show. I'm grateful for his time in our conversation. Coach Davis and the Vegas Nighthawks are a top-notch organization, and I wish him and the team the best of health and luck on the upcoming season. I look forward to keeping in contact with Mike and hope that we have the opportunity to touch base during the 2025 season. Before we wrap things up, it's time to share a few reminders and upcoming events. On January 4th, Arena Football 1's Wilkes-Barre-Scranton Mavericks will host an evaluation camp at Misericordia University Sports Dome. The event will be limited to 75 participants. Interested players can register at play4wb.com. On January 5th, the International Football Alliance's Tampa Bay Tornadoes will conduct their final tryout at Leto High School in Tampa, Florida, from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. local time. Registration is at 9 a.m. with a $75 cash-only fee to participate. On January 18th, the International Football Alliance will host its official combine in Dallas, Texas. Players interested in participating and register at ifa.football/draft-tryout. On January 19th, the International Football Alliance's Chihuahua Rebellion will host a tryout at El Paso High School in El Paso, Texas, from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. local time. Pre-registration online fee of $40 or a day of the event registration fee is $65. The event will be streamed exclusively on Right Now TV, and official training camp invites will be handed out at the tryout. On January 25th, the Professional Arena Independent Association will hold its live player draft at Core Steakhouse in Atlanta, Georgia. Also on January 25th, the Arena League's Ozark Lunkers will host an open tryout at Allison Sports Town in Springfield, Missouri. Check-in begins at 1:30 p.m. local time. For additional information, visit ozarklunkers.com/tryouts/. On February 5th through the 8th, Arena Football 1 will hold its combine in Naples, Florida. For more details, visit the af1.com or nationalscoutingcombine.com. Thank you to everyone who has tuned in this week. I hope you all found this information helpful and enjoyed my interview with Coach Davis. I wish you all an enjoyable and safe New Year. I look forward to having you all back next week for an all-new episode of Player 54 Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into today's show. You can support the show and our partners by using code PLAYER54 at checkout at any of the following websites: RoyalRetros.com, where you can save 15%. TrueVictory.com, where you can save 15%. BuckedUp.com, where you can save 20%. ImpactMouthguards.com, where you can save 10%. HobbyArmor.com, where you can save 5%. JustMeatJerky.com, where you can save 10%. Don't forget to follow, like, subscribe and rate Player 54 Podcast on your platforms of choice. Do you have a question or topic you would like to have discussed on the show? Message us via social media or send an email to player54podcast@gmail.com.